It is Ebro, Laura, and Rosenberg. Welcome to the program, my friend Latham Thomas, the doula extraordinaire of and leader of what is now known as the Soft Space by Mama Glow, which is over in Brooklyn, New York, on North 8th Street, right there, 208 North 8th Street. They're having an event this Friday, 6 to 8, which actually is the kickoff, right, Latham, for the weekend of the Doula Expo.
Yes, the Doula Expo is kicking off this weekend. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. I love listening to y'all. I love the thought leadership that happens here
Oh,
and how you move
thanks.
the culture forward. So thank you. Ebro also is a dad doula, so he knows about that life. Okay. And I'm so excited to be here as a founder of Mama Glow. Yes, we just launched the Soft Space, which is an amazing space for live events. And we'll be kicking off actually our Doula Expo weekend, which does start Friday night with a cocktail, but then Saturday and Sunday is the actual festival. And it is called Coachella for birth workers and families. It's literally
Wow.
like we have 50 different speakers, including Tatiana Ali, who's our host, or I should say our MC, Tamron Hall, who's obviously an Emmy Award winning television host and author, bestselling author. We have New York State Senator Samara Brooks, who actually passed some really important doula legislation in the state of New York. And we've been like on really leading the charge with that in New York City. We have Jamani Williams, who's our public advocate. Deirdre Cooper Owens, who's an amazing historian who actually is the foremost historian in the work of Jane Miriam Sims, who was also called the father of gynecology, but he was essentially experimenting on Black bodies
Right.
forcibly during slavery. And so she's a person who has brought to light the work that was happening that kind of helps frame up the maternal health crisis in this country. So we have people like that. DJ Vashti's on the ones and twos. So
Vashti.
yeah, so it's going to be amazing. Queen of Fool will be there. Like a lot of amazing people will be speaking, but what's exciting about it is that it's really like a space for us, right? When we have these conversations about maternal health, when we're talking about health equity, when we're talking about reproductive rights, especially in this moment that we're living in, where our rights are under assault and there's draconian laws in place across many states that make it impossible for people to have reproductive choice. This is not just an issue that faces white women, which people often think when we're talking about reproductive rights. When we talk about it, we're really framing it around reproductive justice, which is really a framework that says that people should have the right to have children, the right not to have children, and the right to see their children grow up in safe and healthy environments. So that means that not having your kids get gunned down, meaning that your kids can actually live and thrive and not be in communities where there's violence. It means that they have access to safe and healthy food and education and healthcare, right? And so that's the framework that we're actually operating from that really anchors this movement and really this work that doulas are doing, whether we're helping to usher babies into the world, helping people, to survive, on the other side, like doula work, I should say, like spans the entire life course, right? So pregnancy, birth, postpartum, but also loss and abortion too, right? And because, everybody needs support at these life junctures.
Latham, the work you've been doing, you've been leaning in for how many years now? Has this been your calling?
Yeah, thank you for calling it a calling because I feel like it's that too. I've been in women's health for like 2 decades. And so when my son was born, he's 21, a senior in college now at Berkeley School of Music, y'all, and on the dean's
Congrats.
list.
Nice.
Thank
Wow.
So what's been amazing though is that he was born in a birth center in New York City, 222 West 14th. And if you know anything about New York, right next door to where he was born was Two Eyes. Then it became the Derby and Up and Down. So my son was born in a nightclub, and then he turned out to be a DJ, right? So it's like interesting. But that was the only freestanding birth center we had in New York. And what that means is that we had a space where midwives of all backgrounds were serving people who were birthing. You could go in there, you could get your medical records just like across the counter. You would weigh yourself, you would test your urine, write that in your chart. And it was like this really humane experience. And then you birthed in rooms that looked like your bedroom at home. right? There was a tub, the jacuzzi, then they had like skylights. I mean, this is not everybody's home, but it felt like a home environment, right?
Right.
And then they had a kitchen. We had gumbo going, and I was in the birth room, right? So it was like amazing kind of environment to be born in. And shortly after my son was born, it was shut down. And
Mm.
it was for malpractice insurance premiums, which went skyrocketing. And it meant that doctors would have to actually put their insurance, you put midwives on their insurance, which obviously is super patriarchal, right? Like having men or doctors who seem like they're like more qualified to, you know, have midwives underneath them, and nobody wanted to do it. And so what ended up happening is that birth centers shut down. It got really restrictive to be able to birth outside of the hospitals. And then we really pushed hospital birth, which we've been pushing for hundreds of years now, but we really pushed hospital birth as the pinnacle and haven't thought about what would it look like to reimagine birth in a way where we have safety, dignity, and belonging. And we also feel like we're being seen and heard, which is the experience that Black women and birthing folks, as well as other POC folks and marginalized communities really need to feel, right? So for me, I'm always thinking about what's the best place? Like, not everybody is a candidate for home birth or for out of hospital birth in a birth center. Some people have to do hospital birth, but can we make it be an environment where they feel safety? Can we make it a supportive space? Can we reimagine and actually reconfigure the type of care that happens in these spaces and also hold these institutions accountable? And so that's what we're really trying to do here. One of the things that I'm excited about for the Doula Expo this year is that we're offering 7.25 CEU credits for nurses and doctors so they can come get this education and learn about health equity, learn about different ways to provide care, learn about coalition building, learn about how to really be in community with people who are doing this work. And so I'm excited about that because it's bridging some of those cultural gaps and also the structural gaps that exist around what our care looks like. But then it also creates a space where people can see people who look like them, right, who are providing care and think about how to do it differently, right? And so that's another thing that I'm excited about that we're doing at the Doula Expo.
Yeah, I think for
I
many,
think
and,
the
and Laura, you could chime in here too. Until you've gone through a birth experience as a woman, right, or even a supporting, partner, you don't realize how much it can make a woman feel like just a like number on a page, or just being put on an assembly line. And so when you're talking, Latham, about these safe spaces where you can see people who look like you or have similar experiences and create this very intimate, safe, warm environment, you don't realize, unless you've actually been through the public hospital feeling, which is so like sterile and non-emotional and robotic, how needed it is for a birthing mom to figure out how to be calm, feel safe in this very vulnerable and delicate time, right?
Yeah.
Like it's imperative.
I think
Yeah.
also the education is super important, Latham, because I've heard from different women say that, oh, right off the top, oh, I could never afford a doula, without even really understanding or doing the research that there's programs available, there's all kind of assistance available, or the thought of, oh yeah, I don't think my doctor allows that. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's so many conversations that you can have. And I think a
Yep.
lot of times people forget that they work for you. Like that
Yes.
doctor is working for you.
Yes,
And
that's
at any point, you're allowed to leave and go somewhere else. It's not easy, but I had to convince one of my girlfriends who wasn't heard, wasn't feeling safe, wasn't feeling comfortable. I was like, you need to go. And I had to remind her, they work for you. You know what I mean? They're giving you a service. So, and then once she changed, she was like, oh my God, best thing I ever did. Because as someone who had a complicated delivery, it is, you're literally, it is something that is so delicate. You can lose your life. And obviously people don't like to go straight to that, but it's real conversations because it's real talk and it's happening. It's happening to women over and over. I think that an eye opener was, I always go back to this because Serena Williams' documentary, Being Serena, was like, okay, now you have the greatest athlete in the world, and she still wasn't heard. And she still had to go, through numerous things just to them to listen to her. And at the end, she was right. She literally had blood clots that could have killed her.
Yes, exactly.
So
And
I love that you can come to the Doula Expo and get this education and remind people of their rights, because I just
Yes.
feel like not many of us are just my circle. I was really surprised that my circle wasn't as educated as I thought. Like some of the things I thought, I'm like, I thought you knew this already, you know, but you can't assume. You cannot assume.
Yeah, most people do not know. And I think it's like once you enter into the space and you're pregnant, then it's like, oh, let me look for the information now. And it seems like there's information everywhere, but like, what do I take in? I think it's interesting that you brought up Serena Williams, because the other reason why she was hurt, because she had a white husband, right? And so even though she was in those hospitals and she was pushing for herself, he also had to step in, right? And so when I think about not having an advocate there, like, you know, a doula or somebody who can also help navigate that terrain of those spaces, I think it's so important. And to your question and comment that comes up so often, like, oh, that's for white people, or I can't afford it. There are literal programs. And in New York City, y'all, there is an incredible program. If you are Medicaid eligible, if you're in foster care or have aged out, if you are unhoused, if you are in a shelter, if you have been experiencing intimate partner violence, if you're a migrant, you qualify for a program called the Citywide Doula Initiative, which is funded by the Fund for Public Health. It is on the top of the agenda here in New York City to make sure that every single birthing person has access to a doula. The Mama Glow Foundation is the largest provider of pro bono doula services in New York City. So if you get one of those doulas, it's probably from us. And so those doulas are paid for through the city of New York. It is free. And all you have to do is fill out a form. We have Spanish and English, forms so that it's easy for people to fill out the information. But that's one way. A lot of states have programs like this that are Medicaid-based programs. You have doulas who do sliding scale. So if you can't really afford, but you are kind of like in the middle where you're like, maybe you don't have insurance, or maybe, you know what I mean? For some people, they don't qualify for Medicaid, but they don't really, they can't really afford to pay.
Right.
If you're in the middle, there are people who do sliding scale. There's programs. We have a program called Love Delivered, which is funded by Carol's daughter. And that program is literally like, there's no barrier. You complete the form. If you're there's like 6 cities that we cover, including New York. We have New Orleans, Atlanta, DC, Miami, I think Los Angeles. And if you're in those, you just fill out a form and then you get matched, and it's paid for through. So private companies are figuring stuff out. Insurance providers are figuring it out. We're designing doula benefits with insurance companies now. Like, it's possible, but I think you do have to do the research. But here's the thing, is that there's a reason why people don't have access to this. There's a reason why we have made it difficult as a society for people to access the care that they need and the information that they need. Because if they were educated, if they had the resources intact, and if they had their birth village come in with them, like we roll in and we know what our rights are, then it would mess up how things are flowing.
Well, that
it would
big
mess
business.
right? The power structure would change. And so, so I think it's like the doula is one piece of the birth village that has to come together with the physicians, the midwives, the other care providers who also work as a team to make sure that your baby gets here safely and that you thrive on the other side of birth. And the other thing I think is so important too is this next generation, y'all, is fire. Like, this next generation of students that are coming through, the public health, the bioethics, medical anthropologists, the OB-GYN students, and they're not for the play. They are not here for like the white supremacist patriarchy. They are not here for what's happening in the medical system, and they're here to actually change the culture inside. And so I've been honored to be able to work with and mentor a lot of young people on their way to medical school. We typically take people for like 2 years before they head to medical school, or 1 to 2 years when they come out of college. I have a program at Brown University where we do this, and a bunch of universities where we do this at. And I'm a professor at Brown, where the Mama Glow course is also embedded, where students can take it on a semester basis, right? And a lot of students who took that class, y'all, went midwifery track. Like, they started OB-GYN and then said, I'm going to do midwifery. So it's like, it's amazing to see how we can culture shift when we go into institutions. We can culture shift when we go into spaces where we're investing in the future. So I think that's another important thing, is like getting to people younger to learn about doula work, to learn about how we can bridge these gaps. So the young people is one thing. And then I think the current providers like nurses are also important. And one thing we did that was really amazing, we launched a program with CVS Health, Aetna, with their nurse care managers, where we developed a doula competency training for CEU credits. And then those nurses came, hundreds of nurses, and got that training so that they could bring that into their high risk client environments where they're working with people who look like us, who need better care, who need more personalized attention, who need to feel that cultural and structural competency come through the care, right? So I think there's so many ways, and we're tackling all of them because it's so important.
The Doula Expo, Saturday and Sunday, October 5th and 6th, over at the, what is that called, 25 in Williamsburg, XXV?
XXV.
In Williamsburg. And if you want to see Latham in a more intimate environment, at her soft space, the soft space by Mama Glow, 208 North 8th Street, Brooklyn, New York. That's Friday, 6 to 8:30 p.m. They're gonna have some cocktails, and you know, mom's like a beverage.
I mean,
That's right.
Wind a little.
Moms. So before we wrap, Latham, because I experienced this as being a father of two. You know, just the reality that when you talk about a patriarchal society, one that was developed by white men, and it's chock full of white supremacy and racism. In that process, you also talked about, people experimenting on black women's bodies without consent was a part of our history as they develop practices and things like that. In all of this journey that we've been through in the health industry here, there has been a removal of knowledge of even what the body is capable of, and how to wrap your brain around making sure your body is prepared for giving life. And that was one of the things I learned in working with you with Issa's mom, was just the preparation and the mindset going into actual childbirth, of what you want your childbirth to be like. You have options, like, as Laura articulated, like these people work for you. And I don't think people who are, giving birth, whether the mother or the father, are even thinking about it in that process. We've been, as a society, kind of taught, you just hand your body over to the health industry. They tell you what's best for you, and boom, boom, done. And sometimes, like Rosenberg says on the show, doctors are like, car mechanics. There's good ones and there's bad ones, right? And so you better have information about what you want, right, for yourself, and then some sort of knowledge of how your body is going to respond to childbirth, like what actually is taking place month by month, trimester by trimester, et cetera, et cetera. So I learned all of that, for not only from yourself in the doula planning process, but in the classes that I went to as a father, where you learn about the hormones and the oxytocin and active labor and timing and all of the different steps. And so if you're watching this conversation, I just think and you're someone who takes health seriously and your body serious, male or female, however you define yourself, it's important to just do this research. Whether you're in preparation for a child, or you don't even know where you're going in your parenting journey, just to know how your body works. Because that I think that has been removed from us in our education process, I think, in our society.
Absolutely. You have to be your own self-scientist. You have to learn your body. I love that you're saying this. I think it's so important also for people, even if you're not going to undergo the process, like you said, just having the knowledge
to support someone else. Maybe you have a sister or an aunt or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Our next doula training also is October 13th. So if people are interested, in this work and diving deeper, at mamaglow.com, you can learn more. But I was also going to say to that, one of the things that we have to think about when it comes to our community is that we have these conversations about advocating and standing up for yourself, and it's right, and we should have that discussion. And also, we have to remember that we also have been raised in a legacy of people who were first enslaved and then had to survive Jim Crow terror. And then, right, we developed these survival strategies, which included respecting authority, respecting people in positions of power. And so when you go into a setting where there's a physician or a police officer or a teacher, right, we are taught to supplicate ourselves. We've been taught to respect, not to question, not to, right? So then when you get to the doctor, you don't have those muscles, right? Because you've been told, be quiet, don't like listen to them, they're the expert, or listen to the police, like don't talk back. Like you've been taught that, we have been taught that structurally. So when we get there, we don't know how. And so the learning, like you said, is so important because we get to start to exercise those muscles in smaller ways to learn advocacy from a place of power, right? And not feel like, oh my God, I'm having anxiety to ask this question to my physician, right? So to your point, Laura, you can't even think about hiring a different doctor, think of that as even a choice if you're still in this position that I don't feel empowered, right? I feel like I'm answering to, like, I feel like
I'm inferior. I don't know. I'm ignorant. I don't even know what questions to ask.
Right. Not having the language. And that's also weaponized, right? Like people will use that as a way to also silence, use that as a way to make you not feel like your questions are valid, right? And so whenever we feel that, to y'all's point, whenever we feel that inside, like I'm not feeling centered, I'm not feeling safe, I'm not feeling seen, that is the information. You don't have to ask yourself no other questions. That's exit stage left, right? That is when we start thinking about what's a different provider I can talk to. If we have those feelings early, we already know what the trajectory is going to look like when it's actually showtime. We're going to have an experience likely that does not align with what our values are, what our hopes are. And so I would say, listen to that energy, listen to that intuition that's telling you when you're, and you don't have to be able to articulate it. And people always think, well, I have to explain why. No, if I don't feel right, if the energy ain't right, like I don't need to like explain or have a whole like flow chart to like figure it out. No, I'm going to leave, right? That's my information right there. And so I want people to think about that too. If I do not feel safety, if I do not feel connection here, this is not the right person to provide the care. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that it's not right for you. And so I really hope that people start to do that as well, because we deserve that. I think we do it in so many other ways. Like you're in the restaurant, they bring you the wrong dish. You ask to send it back and you get the right thing. How come we can't do that for our healthcare? How come we can't do that for ourselves in the time where we need to do it most, when we're advocating for our lives, right? And so I think that's really important. And the other piece I would say is that a reminder that birthing is a process that requires safety, dignity, support, belonging, but also transcendence. And so you can't also advocate at the same time. And that means that you need to have people there who are in line with how you need to be supported, right? Physicians, the care team, everyone, your partner, whoever's there with you. You can't also be fighting for your life, right? And so I want to remind people that this experience where Black women go to bed wondering if they're going to die during childbirth does not happen in white communities. They're not thinking about that, but we are. And so I want to unhook us from that and remind us of the power of our bodies, and remind us the power that we have as a community, that we also were birthing a nation that was Black and Indigenous midwives who are doing this work. We know how to do it. And we have to return to that power and remember that also we can demand what we need to feel safety so that this process unfolds like it's supposed to, right? Because that's our birthright, to have a safe, healthy, dignified, affordable, and transcendent birth. Like that's our birthright.
Latham Thomas from Mama Glow. You can check out her soft space in Brooklyn this Friday, 6:30 to 8 p.m. for some cocktails. And then the Doula Expo over at 25 over in Williamsburg on Saturday and Sunday. Latham, I love you. Always great to see you.
XXV in Williamsburg.
XXV, sorry. I guess Roman numerals 25. Yeah, there you go.
It's confusing.
XXV.
I know that's your got that going. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe in my next chapter of my life, I could be over at the soft space. You know what I'm saying? Helping.
Yeah,
dad.
we're gonna have you there. We're gonna have you come and talk to the dads. Don't
You know,
don't
people
think-
don't, Rosenberg for the longest, they thought I was making up the delivering
No,
Issa
he's
story.
not making it up. I know. I remember. I listened the day that you told the story, and they were like, "No." I'm like, "Yes, yes,
Well,
yes."
Latham
in our
was the
defense-
doula. Latham was trying to get, here's how crazy the story. It was happening so fast. Latham is trying to get from Harlem to the crib. And I think your Uber driver like took you the wrong way or something crazy.
He's somewhere crazy, and Ebro calls. He's like, "She's here."
I was like, I did it. I did it. You taught me well. I did it. It happened.
It was amazing.
And by the way, when we got to the hospital, they treated us so crazy.
Yeah,
They
were
looked
like,
they treated us. You were there. They were looking at me like we were trying to do a home birth, like we planned this.
They were on one. They brought people in to like observe, and we had to do a lot of work.
It was very, very interesting. But your guidance got my oldest here, Issa, and it was such a great experience that her mom became a doula.
Yes, she did. Yes, she's amazing.
So look, I can create doulas.
You know,
Oh my
you didn't
God,
do
that's
that.
your gift.
But
Your gift is you make doulas.
wow, and
Look,
babies.
you see Rosenberg and Laura, they're upset that I have something that is beautiful and a
he
gift.
just adds
Power.
extra sauce. It's
Well,
just
and
a lot, lady.
Yo, you see this
But
hate?
we love him. But
Well, it doesn't help
It's
that you
a
lie about so
lot.
many other things. You know what I mean? It's hard to know. Picking out the truth is hard, you know?
Listen, maybe it's all true. Maybe you guys just got to stop hating.
This is what I love about y'all. This is what I love. I love this energy. I love this sibling energy in the morning, right? So far away, this like gets me going.
Nah, Latham, we love you. Thank you for your time
Thank you,
and
Latham.
coming on our program. And let's continue to do the work.